One of the most common mistakes that I see farmers, and especially new entrants, doing is when they choose what area of their farm they're going to cultivate, they tend to cultivate the entire area. The problem with that is that then they go back and they realize that it would be suitable for them to have alleyways or have inter-row spaces between what they're planting. Then they have to go back in and reseed that to grasses and clovers. They've disturbed the existing microflora and fauna that it's in the soil and losing the benefits of that.
First things was I knew we had some good land here, lots of alders growing. And alders are a good thing, you know, people seem to think they're not, but they're a nitrogen fixing plant. So when I had cleared them all off and burned the brush, I planted potatoes. The first year the potatoes did reasonably well. I didn't have an ability to apply lime at the time, so I didn't have a tractor or a trailer or a lime spreader or any of that sort of thing. I had a wheelbarrow and a shovel. And you can do it, but lime is very heavy and it's hard to push uphill. I grew potatoes, and then I started into the hardier vegetables like chard and beets and carrots and that sort of thing. And they were moderately successful. They're really quite successful now. And because it's the incorporation of all this plant material that improves the dynamic of the soil. So after clearing, and there were some stones. That stone wall over there is the product of what I picked out of part of this garden, but it was in one particular area, and I believe it was an old stream bed, just after the last glacier or something, 10,000-year-old stream bed that actually resulted in most of that stone. And after that, it's just a matter of finding the proper rotation, what follows what are the nutrient requirements for each of the crops. Keep reading, experimenting, and see what you come up with.
The beef cattle that I'm raising are grazing the grass. They're totally pasture fed. I'm not feeding them a bunch of grain. I do supplement with hay, especially at this time of year. But the production system I chose was specifically pasture-fed beef, and I chose to use a rotational grazing method. There was moss growing in some of the fields, and so I knew that they were too acidic to really grow a good crop. And pH was between 5 and 6 in some places. So I put 3 ton to the acre of lime on. Actually, it wasn't lime, it was wood ash. And I chose wood ash because I didn't have a big time window, and lime really takes up to 6 months to do its work in the soil, where wood ash works in several weeks. And then I chose a pasture mix that suited the soil. The higher land, I put a little more alfalfa on. The wetter land, I used a little more bird's foot trefoil. I tried to put clover over all of it, and most of the grass itself, other than the legumes, is timothy. Another project for next spring is to complete the nutrient management plan here. Because the fields have been laying fallow for so long, they've got to need some additional nutrients before I can really expect good productivity from the pastures. So either the soil sampling will happen this fall or maybe next spring, but it will be done before I before I crop the next field.
The year before I moved here, I knew that I wanted to farm this certain section of land. So I hired someone that spring. I was still in BC to seed all the fields to a green manure, so that they were plowed and then reseeded. And then when I got here in the fall, we mowed the fields and incorporated the green manure, and then had I at least knew I had 1 year of kind of control over the weed species to some degree, and adding more nutrients and nitrogen back into the soil, so I had something to work from in the first year. That was the first step for me. So I seeded a mixture of oats, peas, and vetch. So I had a mixture of a legume, a grass, well, 2 legumes and a grass. So I had a mixture of organic matter going back into the soil, and then 2, the peas and vetch that would fix nitrogen in the soil to replenish that part of the nutrient base in the soil. So after planting the green manure that first year and incorporating it back into the soil, the following spring I started seeking out compost and manure in the area. We only had a few animals, so we didn't have a large source to draw on here. We had a little bit of old manure that was around, so I started spreading composted manure in certain sections of the field, and then just started seeking out neighboring farmers who I could get manure from to build compost. I started building smaller composts, and then started incorporating more green manure into my rotation plan. So I had certain sections of the field get planted in green manure every year. And then within my vegetables, when a crop comes out, or when a section comes out of crop production in vegetables, I try and take it down and then seed it to some kind of green manure. So this year, some of the crops came out later in the season, and I was able to put in oats before the end of the season, just to catch any nutrients that would be running off, and to hold on to the soil for the fall. So anywhere a section of field opens up, I try to get a green manure in there and try to spread as much compost and manure as I can.
It had been left vacant for several years. The people that were here were renting it out, so they rented the house and the fields were just left. Some farmers did come and make the hay, but nothing was ever put back or done with it. So it's a fairly run-down property, and it's taking some time and effort to piece a little bit at a time to bring it back. So I knew what it should involve, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it's expensive. So we've tried a few different things. Instead of plowing, we've used rotating pigs through our fields, and we've tried that, so they turn the sod and then reseed it the next year. We've planted crops specifically for the pigs, so plowed and planted crops for the pigs so that they would fertilize it and work the land for us, and then reseeded it again. So we've tried a few different things. We've done pasture rotation with the cattle. We've been through 2 soil tests, and on our pasture where the cattle were on a daily rotation, we've seen some improvements in that land already. We didn't see as much improvement on the pig piece, but I didn't sample it well enough to really get a good example. It would be a great thing to have more manure, more compost, but to do that you need more animals and you need more land to support it. So it's kind of a catch-22. It'd be great if there was some way that some places that had extra or they had too much to apply to their land, that we could get it transported to us, and they would be able to get rid of their overabundance, because around here it's endless. We could put it on 6 inches thick. It wouldn't matter.